Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us on this first of a very exciting webinar series brought to you by Ride to Conquer sponsor KPMG. My name is Chris, and I will be your moderator today for today's webinar. KPMG has been a national sponsor of the Ride since 2010 and a top fundraising team year after year. Yesterday was Epic Impact Day, and today we are keeping the celebration going with 4 awesome panelists who will provide you guys with some insightful tips to help you take your fundraising and training to the next level. I'd like to introduce our 4 speakers today. Cancer researcher and 2-time cancer survivor Nigel Brockton, he'll be opening up. Second speaker will be Jason Evans, avid cyclist and team member of Team KPMG. Kristen Trempner, our Ride to Conquer Cancer specialist. And finally, Aaron Dolan from Norco, the official bike partner of the Ride. Please stick around after our 20 epic tips for a brief Q&A session where you can actually submit your question. In fact, you can submit a question throughout this webinar by using the question function on your webinar control panel. So please feel free to do that throughout. We'll try to get to your question at the end. We are recording the webinar today, so next week you'll be able to tell your friends and family all about it, and they can actually head to the Ride to Conquer Cancer website and rewatch this webinar when it's posted. And we'll send an email to you to let you know it's up on the website. Thank you again for joining us today, and I'd like to invite Nigel to kick it off for us. In addition to his role as a cancer researcher at Alberta Health Services, he is also team captain for Team 1AIM, who have already raised a remarkable $94,000 for the 2015 ride, which is pretty incredible. Nigel, are you there, sir?
I'm here, and I've just put my
Hi, Nigel.
So, shall I kick it off?
Hello, sir. Please do.
Okay, one of the things as you do your fundraising, you'll sometimes get people that have, to some extent, a justifiable frustration that we haven't made more progress. But in reality, we've made incredible progress over the last 40 years, really, since the President Nixon kicked off the war on cancer. That tends to be the time that people are sort of fixed in their minds. So back in 1971, if you were diagnosed with cancer, you had a 50% chance of living for 5 years. That number is actually almost 70% now. And you think, well, a 20% increase over 40 years doesn't seem like very much, but even within the province of Alberta, that represents over 3,000 people who survive each year because of the progress that's been made in cancer research. So we have made incredible progress in the outcomes that people experience. We've also made incredible progress in the understanding of cancer, that it's not just one disease. Even cancers within a specific subsite, be it breast, colorectal cancer, they are a multitude of different diseases, and we now have a better idea of how to characterize them and how to select the right treatments for those. The biggest thing, and as a cancer survivor myself, diagnosed in the late 80s and recurrence in the early 90s, is the perception of cancer. People didn't even want to hear the word back then. Now people, and people were very isolated by it. Now, because the outcomes are so much better, people are more comfortable talking about it. They don't hide away in isolation. And the treatments are much more manageable. Targeted treatments, antibodies, and vaccines, and even the radiation therapy. I had big lumps of lead bolted to a mask on my face, and now they actually do it all digitally. Which all reduces the sickness, and people still get quite dramatic effects from the treatments, but they're much less than they used to be. And the other one is prevention. We now have a much better idea of how to prevent cancer. Smoking rates are decreasing. screening rates are increasing. We are getting a better handle on what are the lifestyle factors that people can address to reduce their risk of cancer. So all in all, cancer is a very different proposition to what it was even 20 years ago, even 10 years ago in some cases. And in terms of communicating this to your potential donors, if they say we haven't made progress, we've made progress in survival, understanding, treatment, perception, and prevention. And all of that makes a massive difference to people who are facing cancer and their loved ones. And I'm biased because I'm a cancer researcher, but research fuels this progress. Without research, we'll do the same thing tomorrow as we're doing today. And even though with all the progress that I've just mentioned, it's still not good enough. We all want cancer gone, done, finished. But we are getting there. And even in the last 10 to 15 years, which is actually a pretty short amount of time, we've learned about things that we didn't even know that we didn't know. Infections that cause cancer. So human papillomavirus, we knew about it in cervical cancer. We now know that it causes about 50 to 70% of head and neck cancers. And we now have a vaccine for the HPV virus, obviously. Helicobacter pylori, we used to think that gastric cancer, stomach cancer was caused by, or ulcers were caused by stress. It now turns out that it's a bacteria which can be eradicated with antibiotics before you get cancer. Understanding the role of sedentary behavior, so that's the sitting. I know we're probably all sitting here, but independently of weight gain and physical activity, the amount of sitting you do actually impacts your risk of cancer. But we didn't even know that was a thing 10 years ago. And we're still learning about the best ways to treat people, to screen people, so that we're not overdiagnosing and getting the most efficient and reducing the anxiety associated with screening. And the tools that we have at our disposal, we've made this progress with tools that are vastly inferior to the ones that we have today. And the best example of this that I can think of is the Human Genome Project, which was completed in the early 2000s, cost almost $3 billion, took 10 years, and that can now be done in an afternoon in a laboratory for about $1,000. So that gives you an idea of the scale of progress we've made, and that enables us to actually look at the details of cancers and work out how to treat them. And that's kind of my basis for how do I know that we're going to succeed, because we've been able to make all this progress with tools that were vastly inferior. So in terms of what Alberta's contribution, how do I click onto the next slide? Thank you. Alberta is a world leader in many areas of cancer research. The oncolytic viruses, which are viruses that specifically attack cancer cells. So one of the problems with things like chemotherapy is it attacks all cells, all rapidly dividing cells in the body. Oncolytic viruses will actually target the cancer cells themselves. So it can be administered with very low side effects. The role of physical activity in both the risk of cancer and improving outcomes after cancer, a lot of that work has been driven by my boss, who is a world expert in the role, particularly in breast and colorectal cancer. Brain cancer, Calgary is a global leader in its treatment and research. And clinical trial recruitment, Alberta has routinely been one of the highest per capita recruiters into clinical trials, which means a very high proportion of patients in Alberta have access to the latest and best treatments. And these are all sort of local strengths, but they are changing lives. And since the ride began, over 6,000 Albertan patients have had access to clinical trials through funding from the ride. That means they're getting the best, most current, most up-to-date treatment that will lead to better outcomes for those patients. 6,000 people. When you think of the ride and you get 2,000 people at the beginning, think of 3 times that number whose lives have been changed directly by what the ride has provided. Lots of work going on in personalized medicine to try and understand the specific details of somebody's cancer so you can select the right treatment for it. There's, for instance, there's a protein called BAD, which is being researched by a group up in Edmonton, and they think that will allow them to predict who will benefit from chemotherapy, because you don't want to give chemotherapy to people if they're not going to benefit from it, because it's nasty stuff. The Alberta Cancer Research Biobank is heavily funded by the Alberta Cancer Foundation and the RIDE, and that is an infrastructure for research, not just in Alberta but across the world, and is one of the premier facilities, certainly in North America. And the Alberta Tomorrow Project is looking at 50,000 Albertans and trying to understand, when we recruit them before they have, so from 39 to 65, and then you follow them up and understand what kind of lifestyle factors, medications, comorbidities, which is other diseases they've had that change their risk of cancer. And it started in Alberta, and was such a good idea that they actually got national funding to make the Canadian Partnership for Tomorrow project, which is 300,000 patients. So Alberta really is leading the way. The ride is changing lives, and every bit of knowledge we gain is something we can build on. It doesn't go away, and it's all progress that means that inexorably we are moving towards that day when cancer is, if not completely eradicated, a manageable and treatable disease that doesn't hold the fear that it does for people at the moment. So the ride is an incredible event which is accelerating the progress towards a cancer-free future. How do I?
Very good. Fantastic. Thank you, Nigel. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. We appreciate all that information in regard to the incredible progress being made in cancer research. And as riders, we are truly privileged to be a part of that progress. So thank you so much for all that great information. Next, I'd like to introduce Jason Evans from Team KPMG. He's going to pop on, speak with us. Jason, how are you?
Hi, Chris. I'm good. Can you hear me?
I can indeed. All yours, sir.
Great. Thank you, Chris. Tough act to follow with Nigel there. I'm going to share a couple of tips on a couple of different areas. First one is around fundraising and also why we're here. And just want to remind everyone that we each have a personal story for being here. And this is really what we're here for, and you should keep that in mind. It'll make fundraising easier, and it will also make the ride a more rewarding process for you. And we've all got a personal story. That's why we're here. For me, I'm riding for those that I've lost and those that I haven't lost. Most recently, I lost my cousin to colon cancer. He fought very hard, went into remission for a couple of years, but lost the second battle. Also, my mom. She's still with us. She's a 2-time survivor. First thyroid cancer 10 years ago, and a few years ago she had melanoma. So, you know, keep the focus. Remember why you're here. And there's lots of great research going on, and it touches each and every one of us in a different way. So don't be afraid to share your personal story. When it comes to fundraising, you know, make sure to keep your personal page customized. You know, again, you've got to tell your story. It shows your donors how much this means to you and why they should be donating. You know, it can be as simple as updating your profile after you've told your story to say, hey, I'm going for a 50-kilometer training ride today. You know, it gives you some motivation to get out there and train. and shows your donors you're serious about this. Another simple example is, hey, thanks, Jim, for donating. Jim's donating to support my ride because he lost his father to cancer. Simple as that. We can slip ahead to the next slide. When it comes to fundraising, there's lots of resources available. They can help you in many different ways, and there's plenty of ways to reach out to potential donors. First one I'll talk to is the Ride Map to Success page. This is a resource that'll have tips and inspirations for all riders. It's going to go live on the Ride to Conquer site next week. My personal favorite is the email signature button. This tracks your progress in fundraising. You can add it to your email signatures, and people see it when you send them an email related to the ride or not. This is a great conversation starter. I've had a couple of times already where I've just got the button in my email signature, and I'll be on a conference call with colleagues or clients, and they'll say, "Hey, what's this button about? What are you up to?" And it's just a great way to tell them, and I'm in the ride, and this is my story, and it's a great way to open up an opportunity to seek fundraising. Of course, there's plenty of other resources at the Ride to Conquer website. Also, don't be afraid to be creative. With all the hype around the Flames, just last week I saw 2 tickets raffled off for $1,500. Face value was about $400. Amazing that just a quick little email out to your colleagues can generate so much funds to go to a great cause. Maybe a little bit switching away from the fundraising. One thing I'd recommend, I've learned a few lessons on this one, but spend some time on your bike before the ride. I love cycling. There's nothing, and this is such a great excuse to get out, spend some time on the bike, get some exercise, spend some time with your friends or family cycling. My first big ride was a 100-mile ride, a century. I almost didn't finish, though. My mistake, even though I was in great shape, was I didn't spend enough time getting into cycling fit shape. So find a buddy, train with a team. The best way to head into a big Chinook win is to take turns out front. There's going to be lots of riders on the day, so having some experience riding with others will make the day more enjoyable. And my last tip, keep in mind this is a ride. It's not a race. There's going to be riders of all age, all cycling abilities, and all sorts of bicycles. You'll enjoy the experience more if you take time to meet your fellow riders and take care to ride together, not against one another. You want to be prepared and trained, of course. You want to be able to finish, but you don't have to be a pro cyclist. You're going to be supported every step of the way. There'll be bike support, aid stations, lunch, volunteers, sweet vehicles, and maybe a beer or two at the finish. So lots of fun things to keep in mind, and remember, it is a ride. So with that, Chris, I'll turn it back over to you.
All righty, Jason, thank you so much. Some great tips there from an experienced rider. Great tips for you new riders who are joining us for the first time, and for you returning riders. So thank you so much, Jason. All righty, now I'd like to pass the microphone over to Kristen, our Ride to Conquer Cancer specialist. Kristen.
All right, so can you hear me?
Can indeed.
All right, perfect. So thanks, Chris. And, as you just heard from Jason from KPMG say to find your story and your reason for doing the ride. Personalize this and make this your journey. That's the biggest thing. If you do that, and if you tap into the online resources that are available to you, you will be successful in fundraising. The biggest thing is that 90% of our donations come online. That's through people going to the Ride website and clicking on your personal page. This is why personalizing your page is so impactful. It will really resonate with your donors when they go to click donate to see your picture and your story. People that will donate to you online are usually just an email away. Think of your network of friends, coworkers, and reach out to them with a personal email. No one is off limits. You have to ask everyone, and that's the biggest hurdle to jump over, is asking everyone. Although most people might respond from an email, it's really important to make that right ask to the right person and in the right way, in a sense. Make a list of people that of people you're going to ask, and give some thought to a target dollar amount that you're going to ask them and how you're going to ask them. So most of us know someone who can make a significant contribution to our fundraising efforts, whether it be a family member, a friend, or even your boss. But you want to make that big ask. You don't want to make that big ask through email. You want to make sure that that's something you do a bit more face-to-face in that sense. So going on to our next tip, speaking of online tools, we have a lot of different resources that can help you. Through your participant center, we have email templates already created for you. You just have to throw your personal touch onto it and send them out to your contact list. We have that email badge that Jason was speaking about. That's my favorite one as well. You add that to your email signature. It shows people your personal goal, how close you are to it, and it also includes a clickable link straight to your personal page. You can also download our Facebook app and update friends and family on your progress through Facebook and Twitter. This is a great reminder tool for your social media network and your social media community. We might not always have those email addresses to the people in our social networking and stuff like that. So use these tools. You will be amazed at what will come of these once you implement them. So, and again, coming to that next tip, people are well-intentioned. But we're all busy people. And when you send an email out or post something on Facebook, oftentimes people will see it, say to themselves, oh, I gotta get that donation in. I'll donate a bit later. But then they'll forget. And the biggest thing to remember is this does not mean that they do not want to donate to you. After your initial ask, it's all about reminding people and re-reminding them in a sense. But you don't have to do it by just sending an email that says, please donate again. Send out a different kind of update on your fundraising to date, your training. Maybe you just went on a great training ride, beautiful day here in Alberta, how inspired you are about being a part of this amazing event, or any other noteworthy updates. Believe it or not, people want to feel connected to you and this journey that you're on, and people want to donate. They want to help to this great cause. So coming to my last tip is about setting your goal high. We have so many amazing riders that hit their minimum, and that's amazing. But we have even more riders who hit their minimum and then keep going. We were able to raise almost $8 million last year because of people like that. So as you're closing in on your goal, don't be afraid to increase it. I like to say anytime you're close to $500 away from your goal, raise it. People will be more likely to give you more if you are $1,000 away from your goal rather than if you're only $50 away from your goal. So lastly, I'd like to tell you a little success story about one of our riders here, Tom Hewitt. He's on Team NOV, and he recently joined the ride this year in January for the first time. He has already raised $13,700. And that's an amazing start to your first ride in the last 4 months. Tom's secret is he simply follows these steps. He was not afraid to ask every single person in his network and remind them and re-remind them that he's on this journey supporting a great cause. He also welcomed the challenge of making that big ask while still raising his goal as he goes. We are all able to surpass our goals and more once we set our minds to it, just like Tom did. And is currently doing. So it's really possible, and I want to kind of wrap that up with that little story, but I'll pass that on back to you, Chris. So thanks for my tips.
Perfect. Fantastic, Kristen. Excellent tips there. We really appreciate it. Again, Kristen, our Ride to Conquer Cancer specialist. Lastly, folks, I'd like to welcome Aaron Dolan from Norco, the official bike partner of the Ride to Conquer Cancer. Aaron, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
Doing well.
Good. Hey guys, thanks a lot for having me on. So yeah, basically Norco, we've been the official bike sponsor of the Ride to Conquer Cancer since 2011. And one of the big things that we do in support of the ride is we send teams of mechanics to all 4 rides across Canada. So if you run into any mechanical trouble along the ride, or have something you want us to look at when you're at camp after day one, those are the Norco Bicycles guys that are there to help you out. So hopefully we'll see you under good circumstances while you're out there completing your ride this summer. But yeah, a few tips for you. I've got five different topics to cover. The first one will be your bike, obviously. So huge decision to make. But if you're planning on riding a bike that you own already, that you've already got stashed away in your garage somewhere, it's really important that you get out and take the time to give it a good once over and make sure everything is in good working order. So you want to make sure your brakes are working well and the brake pads aren't worn down. You want to make sure your tires aren't worn out. So if you're noticing any kind of bare patches, that's something to address for sure. And you want to check your gearing. So take your bike out on a spin and make sure the gearing is working, shifting crisp and easy. And then also give your front and back wheel a spin and make sure that they're true and rolling true. We've actually got a bike checkover video that we've produced just for the Ride to Conquer Cancer. You can see that video on our site, norco.com/rtcc. So it covers a few different points to go over with your bike leading up to the ride. But one thing I would say is that unless you've got experience working on bikes or working on mechanical things, then I would strongly suggest you take your bike into your local bike shop and have them do a once-over for you and give your bike a quick tune-up. Really, it's a great thing to start a relationship with the people in your local bike shop. And I would say that the few dollars that you'll spend on a tune-up leading up to the ride are well worth the peace of mind that you'll have when you're out there on the road completing the ride and knowing that your bike has been looked over by an expert. So definitely recommend a trip to the bike shop for you. And then alternatively, if you don't have a bike that you want to try and ride the RTCC with, then you'll need to get yourself a new one. So lots and lots of choices out there. And, you know, again, the best thing to do is to head to your local bike shop and have them assess and figure out what's going to be the best fit and offer you the most comfort for your ride. As you're planning to go into your bike shop, though, there are a few questions that you can answer for yourself that will help them to sort of guide you towards the best option. So a big one would be your handlebar. So whether you prefer sort of a flat handlebar like you would see on a typical city bike, or if you prefer something with a drop bar like you would find on a typical road bike. So that's a big one that will help sort of guide you in two different directions. Another thing as well to consider is how you might be planning on using your bicycle after the Ride to Conquer Cancer. So we tend to find that a lot of people who take up riding for the ride end up sticking with it. They find that it's just such a great experience being out on the road under your own power that they stick with it. So good idea to think about if you're investing in a new bike to look at something that's going to really last you beyond the Ride to Conquer Cancer. But whatever you do choose, I would suggest that you try to avoid knobby tires like the kind you find on mountain bikes. You're going to be on the road for most of the Ride to Conquer Cancer, so really no use for knobbies there. And really all they're going to do is slow you down and make it a little bit harder to pedal. So definitely look at a more slick road style tire that'll help you sort of glide over that pavement a little bit smoother. Yeah, again, on that same website that I mentioned, norco.com/rtcc, we've actually got a selection of bicycles that we've recommended for the event, from our upright city bikes all the way to our road race bike, depending on what your preference is. And we're actually doing a promotion, a Ride to Conquer Cancer promotion right now, where if you're purchasing a new Norco between now and your ride, we actually make a donation to your fundraising campaign. So all the details for that are on that same website. Moving on now, we've figured out the bikes, so now what do we want to bring with us on the ride? So really the main things that you want to think about are your basics: food, water, and basic repair kit. So food, really a big point of advice that I would say is that make sure that you're taking food that you're used to eating. So you don't want to head out on the ride with something that you've never eaten before. You know, certain energy bars and energy gels will not really suit you too well. It might give you not a very nice feeling. So I definitely recommend testing all the foods that you're going to be bringing with you before you go on the ride to avoid any sort of stomach cramps or anything like that. For me personally, I always like to carry something like a Cliff Bar, a couple of energy gels, and some energy chews with me. And then water, obviously, probably the most important of all. So you're going to lose a lot of water while you're out pedaling those long distances. So you want to make sure that you're replacing it as quickly as you're losing it. So for a longer ride, I would always carry 2 big bottles of water with me. And really, food and water are especially critical when we're talking about training rides. Obviously, your training rides are not supported, whereas on the Ride to Conquer Cancer, there are rest stops along the route where you can stop, stock up on food and drink. So the one thing to keep in mind, though, is that there does tend to be fairly long distances between those different rest stops. So it's always good to make sure that you are prepared to with food and water. But yeah, like I said, especially critical on those longer training rides when you're out there without the support of the huts along the way. And then for a repair kit, basically you just want to have spare inner tubes for changing any flat tires you may run into, tire levers for getting those pesky tires off. You'll want a multi-tool and a hand pump. Really, most of the items in your repair kit you can keep tucked away either in a jersey pocket or in an under seat bag until you need them. And yeah, flat tires really are going to be the most common thing that you'll run into out on the road. If you've already been doing training rides, there's a chance some of you have already run into a flat tire. But it's always a good idea to know how to change a flat tire before you head out on the long ride. And again, we've got a video on that same website, norco.com/rtcc, that walks you through the steps of changing a flat tire, so you can check that out. What to wear? So this one, when I did the ride in 2013, we were really, really lucky. We had perfect riding weather for both days, but the year before me and the year after me, they had some pretty significant rainfall. So I don't want to suggest that there's going to be rain this year, but you do want to be prepared for that. So you always want to make sure that you're packing a light rain jacket, so something that you can crunch away into a jersey pocket or an underseat bag. And then as far as the standard kit, you know, clothing can really seem like a bit of an afterthought when it comes to riding your bike, but really it can make a huge difference to your enjoyment of your ride. So in addition to the rain jacket, you want to have proper cycling shorts or bib shorts that will keep you comfortable. Avoid any chafing that can cause some definite discomfort on a longer ride. And then a proper cycling jersey that's going to wick away sweat so that you can stay dry and either stay cooler or warmer depending on the weather out there. Obviously, you want to have a properly fitting bicycle helmet and cycling gloves to absorb some of the impacts in your hands, sunglasses obviously, and a good pair of cycling shoes. Yeah, so that's basically it for the kit. And again, really your comfort is the most important thing. So get out there and don't try and do the ride in a brand new kit, brand new pair of shoes. Make sure that you've got a chance to wear in some of that stuff before you head out on the ride to make sure it's going to give you a proper fit. And then the final point to cover is training. So now you've got everything you need for the big event. You've got your bike, you've got your kit, you've got your stuff to bring along. So now you want to make sure that your body's ready. So really, we call it training because you're training your body to be able to handle those longer distances. So the way to do it generally is to sort of work your way up towards that longer distance. If you haven't been riding too much over the course of the winter, you want to start with something small, 10 or 15 kilometers, and then on a weekly basis, you want to progressively work your way up. And then ultimately, you want to try and hit a distance roughly equivalent to your RTCC distance, roughly around 2 weeks before the event date. And then following that, you want to taper your training off so that you're riding slightly less distances, and that's going to give your body time to recover and rejuvenate in time for the ride, making sure that you're really in top form for that event. With training, it's a good idea to have something written down, whether it's in an Excel sheet or on a whiteboard that you can consult daily, keep track of your progress. And there are tons of training regimens out there that you can download, and or you can make up your own if you're feeling up to it. And then the last thing I'd say about training is it's a really good idea to get out there and try and ride with some other cyclists, whether they're people who you're going to be riding with on the RTCC or just other friends who ride regularly. So a really good idea to get a sense of some of the basic hand signals for road cyclists. That'll definitely help to make sure that everyone is a bit safer out there. And then also just getting comfortable with the rules of the road and just generally riding with traffic. Some of the roads that you'll be on the ride do have traffic on them, so being out there and getting comfortable with that feeling of riding in traffic and getting that confidence is a really key thing to get prepared with as well before the ride. But yeah, other than that, I would say just get out there and find whatever's the most comfortable for you. And have fun, because you know, it's an unforgettable experience that definitely is a lot of fun if you're prepared well for it. So that's it for me. Cheers.
All righty, thank you so much, Aaron from Norco. We appreciate those tips. Some really great advice there. And thank you to all of our panelists today for all that great information. I want to thank Nigel, Jason, Kristen, and Aaron again. Folks, this is the time where we now want to open it up to you to ask a few questions, a little Q&A session. So again, you can submit a question by entering it in the question section on the webinar control panel. We already have a few questions here that I'd like to have answered for you. We actually had a question from Shannon. Shannon had asked if she was able to hold an orientation in southern Alberta, and of course our Ride to Conquer Cancer specialist Kristen is going to help her with that. In fact, folks, after this webinar, we're going to send you a follow-up email to anyone who attended today's webinar, and that's going to have Kristen's email information on there, so you can follow up with her and ask her any specific questions. So hopefully that will help you out, Shannon. We had another question. We had a question from Laura. Laura asked, at the pit stops, will there be gluten-free snacks? And Laura, I can actually answer that for you. The answer is yes. We do our very best to make sure that we have gluten-free options for you at breakfast, pit stops, and of course at camp, where you're going to enjoy a really incredible meal and a great experience there. Let's see if we have another question here. Question from James. This one's for Kristen. So Kristen, I'm going to let you answer this one. How do I find out about training events near me? Kristen, you want to take that one?
Yeah, so for on the RIDE website, conquercancer.ca, on the Alberta tab, we've got a calendar for events. We also have a calendar for training rides, and that will be open rides that are from our community and corporate teams who have opened their rides up to everyone. And that will have the location, when it starts, where it's leaving from, all of that. And it also has a contact person so that you can reach out to them and have questions for them with dealing with the training ride. Or if you have a training ride you'd like to post on our website, you can send it to us and we can put it up there live on our website.
All right, thank you, Kristen. Kristen, this next question might be for you as well. The question is from Myrna. She asks, this is a question about updating the content on her personal page. Where do we place the update? Do we just remove what is currently there and replace with an update, or is it done through the personal blog? Maybe you can help out with that question, Kristen.
Yeah, so the updating, I mean, you can add it to your personal description depending on what the update, but that blog is an awesome thing to use. A lot of our riders will kind of update their blog with either little videos or just snaps from stuff. So you can definitely do it either way. If you're going to do it on your description, I wouldn't delete it and then replace it. I would just add on to it. But that's what initially that blog is for. So yeah, definitely take advantage of the blog.
Great, fantastic. Another question from Claudine. Claudine asks, I'm looking for more riders in the Fort McMurray area to train with. how can you put me in touch with those folks? Kristen?
Would you like me to take that one? Yeah. So
Sure,
we
go ahead.
have a list of we have a list of people who are open to having their information public for training rides and stuff like that. So what I can do, if I have your contact information, I can send you an email with the people's contact info in Fort McMurray who have made themselves open and public for training ride reach outs, if that makes sense. So that would, yeah, so after you get my email address after this, if you shoot me an email and let me know who you are, I can send you a list of people that would love to do some training rides with you in Fort McMurray. Yeah, so thanks everyone for tuning in and listening to our tips, and I really appreciate it. So we lost audio for Chris, so thank you guys all for tuning in, and please keep an eye out for the roadmap to success, and we will have another webinar coming out shortly.